Yeah, very timely question. I mean, the combination of a pandemic with social unrest and a global recession means there's plenty of reason for folks to be worried and awake at night. I think it can probably be boiled down to three specific things, though. The first is employee health and safety, both physical health and safety as well as emotional these days. Next, staying competitive, being creative and innovative and coming up with new approaches for strategy or business model, and prioritizing how you're going to go from just surviving actually into thriving. And then finally, given those two, both the people part as well as the business strategy part, how to manage and reduce costs wherever you can. Now, if you take all three of those together, you could say, well, folks would never get a wink of sleep, right? But I think it's important that leaders recognize, first of all, that they're not alone, and secondly, that they have resources, both internal and external, to help them. And there are opportunities to use important data to help drive business decisions. So for me, I think it starts with my team, encouraging resiliency and building confidence in our organization and preparing for what looks like a very different looking future, communicating on strategy and any changes to that strategy in order to gain alignment and buy-in. I think the people agenda is real right now. Before, there may have been some lip service to it. But it's time for employers to go beyond the traditional view of just compensation and benefits and really understand what motivates employees and communicate with them more effectively so that they truly become engaged in the organization's goals. Well, for both employees and employers, engagement drives a deeper sense of belonging. Employees can understand what the overarching goals of the organization are, and more importantly, they can understand how they contribute to achieving those goals. And that's really powerful. It leads to great customer outcomes and great results for both employers and employees. Now, over the last 3 years, we've seen an increase in the number of employers that are looking at engagement, which is great to see. But now, of course, we're all having to pivot and think about engagement not only in terms of the traditional workplace, but also those factors that lead to employee engagement in a work from home or a mixed sort of an environment. The next logical question is, well, how do you come up with an appropriate employee engagement plan? And I think that really is something you have to be very specific about. You've got to design it, you've got to implement it, you have to communicate about it, et cetera, like you would any other plan. You could have a great business strategy or a terrific sales plan or manufacturing model, but without employee engagement, all of those are simply going to fall flat. Yeah, so this is an interesting time for healthcare costs because in the short term, I think many employers may actually see somewhat of a drop in their claims costs. And that's primarily driven by the fact that elective procedures have been put off and many people aren't taking advantage of preventive medicine. So that's not sustainable. We don't expect to see that over the long term. And I think really first and foremost, employers need to address that issue with preventive care. That's not healthy for individuals, so it's obviously not healthy for the organizations either. So maybe consider re-communicating and re-engaging folks around preventive costs, and then get back to some of the basics of what you've always done with healthcare cost consideration, which is take a look at data in a multi-year view, because I think 2020 will prove to be a bit of an anomaly. Now, some of the things that we're seeing come out of 2020, however, are really good strategies for reducing healthcare costs. One is an increased use in telemedicine, which I think is hopefully a trend that's here to stay. And the second is to, again, reinvest in those preventive care measures. So I think by taking that multi-year approach, using data, and taking advantage of some of the short-term ideas that we're seeing around healthcare costs, they'll come up with a better overall long-term strategy. as business leaders, I think it's important that we recognize that a whole person comes to work every day. And in order for our organizations to achieve the goals we want to, we need to engage that whole person fully. And they come to us with all sorts of stressors. They could be emotional stressors, physical stressors, financial stressors, stresses around social and civil unrest, unemployment, etc. So our ability to help relieve those stresses and make the employee better suited to be engaged and productive within our organization's goals, that helps both the employee and the employer. So taking it a little bit more specifically, let's consider physical and emotional. Obviously, health and safety is on the forefront of everyone's minds these days. But where we've seen an increasing level of importance is in emotional well-being, mental well-being, employers putting together more programs to help employees with those mental stresses. In financial well-being, employees very often come with concerns about student debt, perhaps a partner or a spouse who has become unemployed, saving for retirement, budgeting, etc. So our ability to help the employee understand some of the basic principles of strong financial well-being means that they're going to have that stress relieved and they're going to be in a position to be more engaged in our organization. And the same thing is true when it comes to career well-being, where employees are wondering, am I going to be able to make more money? What's my career path here? How can I continue to grow as a professional within this organization? When we can answer those questions for folks, it makes it easier for them to truly buy into our organization. And so when we take that more holistic approach, I think what we drive is a better sense of organizational well-being, and then that results in better results for the organization itself. As a business leader, it's important to know you're not alone in making these decisions. In fact, for many of us, data drives decisions. So check out the insights in Gallagher's 2020 Benefits Strategy and Benchmarking Survey to help you find your better